The original Alan Wake is a mediocre action game swaddling itself in the colors of a supernatural thriller, but lacking the crucial ingredient any good thriller needs: mystery. Nothing can just happen. The camera's gotta whoa! And the entire time Alan himself is dryly narrating like, and then the camera pulled in, like a falcon, diving into a political debate. There is no suspense, no intrigue, no depth to the darkness which envelops. Alan Wake 2, on the other hand, is less of a game and more of a feeling. A deep-seated itch in the brain from trying to get two ends to meet that never can. This blurry-minded skepticism that existence can it all be more than a state of mind. That every story is some extension or Ouroboros snake of itself, devouring reality and vomiting its own self-serving truth in its place. For the last decade or so, it feels like we've gotten a little too liberal with the term psychological horror, with a lot of people treating it as tantamount to the kind of horror game where there's no fighting, only running and hiding. Throw in a hallucination or two, we got it. But Alan Wake 2 is one of the few examples I've seen in years of a game that is actually psychological horror. It isn't just mind-bending, it's the whole damn mind Kama Sutra. Unbound by spatial and temporal reality, the map you rely on might betray you. Wandering ghosts vanish without incident. The order of plot events is in flux. Multiple actors cast in multiple roles, or is it the same role 3 times? With the most prominent case being the actual game director Sam Lake himself. Pretentious? Maybe. Coherent? Have you been listening? But while far from scrutable, Alan Wake 2 manages that malleability of time and reality to further its sense of atmosphere and place, evoking a sense of being lost uncomprehending in an unfathomable path of darkness, one which you might feebly try to reclaim to some degree, but will never truly overcome. And that's just Alan's story. On the other half, you have Saga Anderson, an FBI agent in a slow-burning crime thriller which gradually descends deeper and deeper into supernatural madness, entwining and detwining with Alan's trundling helldive. At first I was kinda put off by Saga's whole case board thing, how she puts together all of the clues to make the bigger picture, it just feeling like putting some extra steps in between realizing something and actually doing it. Casey, when you checked the fridge earlier, did you notice anything?
Now that you mention it, Anderson, there was something on the top shelf, a sandwich of some kind, maybe a BLT. It looked very tasty, but it's not my sandwich. I wasn't going to take it away from anybody.
Casey mentioned a sandwich earlier.
Lettuce, turkey, mayonnaise, maybe a pickle on the side. Ingredients for a sandwich, or a recipe for disaster.
There's a sandwich in the fridge. But I wound up appreciating having a low-stakes resource by which we can literally see all the pieces come together plainly and clearly, in plain and clear opposition to Alan's storyboarding equivalent, where surreality and the capricious nature of the world are instead emphasized. The dichotomy between the protagonist's stories sets up a great balance between the bizarre psychological turmoil more about pomp than practical purpose, and the more cogent, grounded, step-by-step clarity in a plot that has actual progression. But even if sometimes Alan's story in particular can feel like it's coasting with the hazards on, it's not just the raw mechanics of the narrative, but how that narrative bleeds into every aspect of the world around the player. Compared to Alan Wake 1's
Previously on Alan Wake.
So much in Alan Wake 2 happens without ceremony. Enemies appearing and disappearing like introverts at prom, non-linear objectives to complete at leisure. This is the kind of game to shoot, edit, color correct, the whole soiree, an entire 15-minute short film it is entirely possible to walk out of early. It all contributes to a greater feeling of immersion, of inhabiting a role rather than observing a character, of existing in a place itself existing to its own unforgiving machinations, uncaring for you and your petty little trifles. Overly incessant booga booga aside, it's not the most outright gruesome or spine-tingling horror game, but is instead an unrelenting surreal spiral, about the closest any game has come to feeling as though it's genuinely stitched together by nightmare logic and wayward thought processes, as opposed to bundles of binary code, wrapped up in gobsmacking art direction and some insanely cool and insanely trippy visual tricks that I will never get over no matter how many times I run through. Sometimes, though, tricks is all it can feel like. While all the stuff around the gameplay is interesting, the exploration and combat are much less remarkable, almost token at times, not meaningfully deepened or re-evaluated the way other earmarks of the original game have been. For all its faults, the original game's core gameplay quirk of the flashlight being both flashlight and aiming reticle was cute. And Alan Wake 2 doesn't really have that. Or, well, anything. We don't even have the jump button anymore. And it's straddling the line separating clumsiness for a sense of vulnerability, as, is to be expected from a horror game, and just being clumsy because it's stupid. But I mean, fair's fair, clunky moment to moment hasn't detracted from other horror gems' legacies. And in that respect, you could consider it a rite of passage. Which, for the record, is a comparison I do not make lightly. For I just had a big dinner. It's immersive and atmospheric in the right ways, where playing it feels like it's contributing to storytelling as opposed to being incidental to it, but maybe one day we'll be able to have and eat both cakes. Later, though. I just had a big dinner. By far and away my biggest complaint, though, is that this game is a digital-only release. I know Remedy did this on purpose so they wouldn't have to charge $70, which sounds consumer-friendly, but where are your consumers now? And it honestly nauseates me to think that the lifespan of this game, this potential future artistic touchstone of a game, is on a ticking clock, even if it's a decade plus from expiration. I sincerely hope Remedy comes around to a physical release at some point, because this is an experience which deserves permanence. One of the purest aesthetic accomplishments of its generation. The payoff for 1,000 little Remedy eccentricities their entire lifespan over, and feels like the studio finally making good on a 13-year-old promise. Talk about a glow-up, goddamn! I'll be honest, this year was a closer fight for the gold than it usually is for me. Hi-Fi Rush was a refreshing and unique idea done well. Dead Space set a new bar for remakes. No, I didn't stutter. Baldur's Gate 3, well, I'll be honest, I only played like an hour of Baldur's Gate 3, I'll probably get to it at some point. But none of those games surpass themselves, quite like Alan Wake 2. It is a brain-bending mystery, challenging you with its impossibility, and buoyed by the confidence of an author who comprehends their fiction so totally, they know when to play it grim, but also where to play it absurd without it feeling out of place. It is a delightful odd duck of a game, an instant triumph of atmospheric narrativity, and a damn solid spooker in its own right. If it'll have the academic depth as other survival horror gems, only time will tell. But the fact I'm even suggesting it might should tell you all you need to know. Believe me, I'm just as surprised as you, or even the guy standing right behind you. But here we are with Alan Wake 2, my 2023 Game of the Year. Actually, you know what? This game made me do math. I don't like that. Hi-Fi Rush instead.